Okay, last section of chapter 8 is tangent. So, all you have to write down on the first page is that to find tangent, it is going to be sine divided by cosine. In other words, it is going to be y divided by x. That's all I want you to write on the first page. So now I want you to flip to the second page. And all I want you to do on this page is to, let's go back to our table that we wrote down at one point. I'm going to add tangent to it though now. And let's see, let's do 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and then pi over 2. Okay. So let's go ahead and fill in for sine and cosine. So sine starts at 0, and then it goes up until we get to 1. And then cosine is that but flipped. Starts at 1, and then it goes down until we get to 0. Now tangent, to get tangent you take the y value divided by the x value. Sine is y, cosine is x. So if I do 0 divided by 1, that's 0. If I take 1 divided by 0, that's undefined. You cannot divide by 0. If I take root 2 over 2 and divide it by root 2 over 2, that just gives me 1. So that leaves us with these two. So what I need to do is divide 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2, but that's really like multiplying by the reciprocal. Those are going to cancel. You're left with 1 over the square root of 3. I have to rationalize that now. Cannot have any radicals in the denominator. That's going to turn out to be root 3 over 3. And to get this one, I'm going to take the square root of 3 divided by 1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. The 2's cancel, and you just get the square root of 3. So this one is the square root of 3. Now you could also use our special right triangles to figure those out, but this is another way. So those are our new values for tangent. Okay, now let's look at this unit circle. So in the unit circle, we said that both x and y is positive. In the second quadrant, x is negative, y is positive. In the third quadrant, they're both negative. And in the fourth quadrant, x is positive and y is negative. So there's actually a saying for how you decide what's positive and what's negative. But before I do that, let's talk about what tangent's going to be. So if I take y divided by x, if I take a positive y by a positive, tangent's going to be positive. If I divide two signs that are different, we get a negative. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. And then a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So let's talk about this. Looks like they're all positive in the first quadrant. So I'm going to put an A there. In this quadrant, only the y value is positive. So that'd be an S for sine. So they're all positive there. Just sine's positive there. In this quadrant, only tangent is positive. So I'm going to put a T there for tangent. And then over here, only the x value is positive, which is the cosine. And this is how you can remember what's positive. You can think of this little saying, all students take calculus, which isn't necessarily true, but it's a way to remember. Okay, so now let's go ahead and graph tangent. If I look at these values right here, I'm going to put those on I'm going to go all the way up to pi over 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, but negative. Okay, so tangent at 0 is 0. Tangent at pi over 2 is undefined. I'm going to put a vertical line there. That's also going to happen over here. So let's see what happens in between those two. So I'm going to graph this in my calculator. Okay, so I'm just going to put tangent of x. I'm going to change my window. So I went from negative pi over 2 and then positive pi over 2. And then I'll just scale it by pi over 6. Whoops. Okay, so in between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2, it looks like a snake. Now, if I change my window to negative 2 pi and then 2 pi and change my scale, this is what tangent's going to look like from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. But this is just one section of it. So it's basically just a bunch of snakes. Okay, let's go on to the next page. And I have some questions crossed off. I crossed off 4, 6, and 8. So we are going to write an equation for tangent. It's just like sine and cosine. However, when you find b, it's a little different. But we'll talk about that in a second. Or not when I find b, when I find the period, sorry. Okay, so I need to identify the period and then tell where the asymptotes occur. Okay, so to find the period, I'm going to take pi and divide it by b. So if I look here, a is 1 and b is 1. There's really a 1 there and a 1 there. So if I want to find the period, I just take pi divided by b, which means the period is pi. Okay, now the asymptotes, I want it to be between negative 2 pi and positive 2 pi. So all I have to do, if that's the case, the asymptotes are just half of the period. This was the period, pi divided by b. So if I take half of the period and just put positive and negative, we're good to go. So half of pi is pi over 2. So negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. Those are the asymptotes. Okay, let's do the next one. So on this one, a is 3, b is 1/4. But I don't really care about the a. To find the period, again, I take pi divided by b. So pi divided by 1/4, that's the same thing as pi times the reciprocal. That's going to turn out to be 4 pi. And if I take half of 4 pi, that's 2 pi. So the asymptotes are going to be between negative 2 pi and positive 2 pi. Okay, the next one. Again, I don't really care what a is, so I'm going to skip that part. b is pi over 2. But I got to find the period. So to find the period, I take pi. Here's my formula again. Pi divided by b. So pi divided by pi over 2 is the same thing as pi times the reciprocal. So I'm just going to get 2. So if I take half of 2, that's 1. So negative 1 and 1 are the asymptotes. Okay, so I think we probably get that. So that's why I went ahead and crossed off 9 and 10 on the back. And that brings us to 11 and 12. We have to just find the period of each tangent function. So I'm going to locate the origin, which is right here. So on tangents, a little different. I want to figure out, so on the, I guess it's not that different. So on the y-axis, I want to figure out where it starts. So the next time it's in the middle of a snake would be right here. So that means the period of this tangent function is pi. Okay, this one, here's the origin. It starts right there in the middle of the snake. The next time it's in the middle of the snake is right there. So the period would be 2 pi. So you just find the middle of the snake, and the next time it's in the middle of the snake, that would be your period. All right, and then finally we have this right here. So I need to look at this table to help me figure this out. So pi over 2, here's pi over 2. Tangent's value is undefined. So this answer is undefined. Okay, here's 3 pi over 2. Well, that's going to be down here. So this ordered pair down here is 0, negative 1. If I take y divided by x, negative 1 divided by 0, that is undefined again. So anytime you find tangent's value on the y-axis, it's undefined. Okay, these both have a denominator of a 4. So that means that it's going to be 1. However, it might be positive 1, it might be negative 1. I have to see what quadrant that it's in. Okay, 3/4 pi. But it's actually negative 3/4 pi. So I need to go this way. So this is negative 1/2. This is negative pi. So negative 3/4 is going to be somewhere in the third quadrant. Tangent is positive there. So my answer is positive 1. Okay, this denominator is also 4. So I'm going to put a 1 there. It's negative pi over 4. So again, I have to go clockwise. This is negative 1/2 pi. So negative 1/4 pi would be about here in the fourth quadrant, and tangent is negative there. So this would be negative 1. Alrighty, so those are, or that's how you do the tangent function for 8-6.